me, Nicholas of the Backyard TARDIS, here with another video. I know I haven't really been recording. You're going to see a bunch of videos with me saying that because I've been recording, actually. I just haven't been posting. I don't know whether it's worth posting some of these videos. Some of them I feel are outdated. Others, I still feel they're relevant. I've just been kind of in a funk this year. But end of the year, I'm having a lot of things I'm loving. I'm loving Skeleton Crew. I'm loving a lot of the stuff that's happening with Sonic. Enjoying doing my Quantum Leap rewatch over on the Price of Reason Live channel. Lots of things that I'm loving. I've got some swag that I've received, and I'm uploading that video right now. Realized I had one from June that I uploaded and never posted, so that probably will go live before this video. But a lot of the circles, I'm the Sonic guy for a lot of people that I know. In the Sonic community, I'm relatively small. Nobody really knows my name. I used to go by Cybersonic8472, but I never made it. But it's funny, in like the Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who communities, everybody knows me as like, oh, that's the Sonic guy. So when something big Sonic comes out, they want to know what I think. And so we just had Sonic Movie 3 came out. I've seen it twice. First saw it by myself, then went and saw it with my daughter. And I'll have a little clip of her reaction to it, although she was very camera shy. But we had a blast. And it's interesting because there's this huge feud because, Disney's pretty upset about Mufasa and the head-to-head, and so I'll talk a little bit about that, and then I'll have a later part in the thing where I will say spoilers. You will see it on the screen. You will see some River song telling you spoilers, and so if you don't want to be spoiled, but it's a very unique situation. The box office numbers for this have been doing really great, and as a Sonic fan, I am so happy for that. They're just outperforming Mufasa. Now, Mufasa is available worldwide. I'm a fan of The Lion King. Not so much of the live action. I get that it could have its purpose and its fans and stuff like that. However, in live action, it's CGI Lion King. They don't get real lions to perform these things. This prequel movie, just its premise alone, I haven't seen it, so I can't fully judge it, but from the premise of what people who have told me the movie is about, it's another make the villain the hero, and I'm not about that. Now, you could say, well, Backyard TARDIS, isn't that what the whole story of Shadow is in the games? That he's... And Shadow is kind of an anti-hero, but that's kind of how the property went. It was the natural progression. It's kind of like Darth Vader kind of thing. Like, the character was made to do that. Versus taking a long-standing property, like Disney seems to be doing, going through all of their animated classics, and let's make prequels where Cruella de Vil wasn't that bad, Scar wasn't that bad, Maleficent wasn't that bad. Let's take all the villains and make them not that bad. and they're doing that with Star Wars too, with like shows like The Acolyte. Let's make it so that the Sith, they're not that bad. They're just misunderstood. This trend in Hollywood right now, I'm not for it. But this movie, so I'm very glad. Now, it has worldwide box offices. On worldwide, of course, it outperformed because that was the entire world versus one nation. Now, granted, the domestic box office is usually the biggest box office outside of maybe China. But here in the U.S., it over doubled the numbers that Mufasa brought in. And so that was a cool win. And it seems like every time one of these Sonic movies come out, first it was Birds of Prey, and we saw the attack that Birds of Prey fans, or just, DC EU fans were doing, where they were, saying that the Sonic movie was all sorts of ists and phobes. It had nothing in that. And you cannot say that about the Sonic community at large. They accept furries, for crying out loud. So, it was just a silly notion to me. But on the other hand, you had, next one, it was Morbius. So it's every time there's like some big studio, whether it be Warner Brothers or Disney, like somebody has a big movie that's going up against Sonic, and while Sonic is not some tentpole movie franchise, every time it's taken over what people would have bet would have been the bigger movie. And I can appreciate that. Now, I will say I've had a number of friends who are not Sonic fans or casual Sonic fans come and they watch the movie and they go, I don't get it. Why is everybody praising this movie? Because at the end of the day, this is, when you get right down to it, in some ways, like the original Sonic movie was Alvin and the Chipmunks movies. It was, kind of slaps CGI character portals into our world, meets human cast. They have family relations funds and a lot of nostalgia, little throwbacks to the property that they're from. This has been, Garfield, Smurfs, you name it, any of those like 80s properties, 90s properties being brought into live action that we saw a lot in the early 2000s. The first movie didn't stray that far from it. And I would say from a movie perspective, the first movie was done really well. I feel like the human element to it was not annoying ever in the first movie. And I felt the first movie had a lot of heart. A lot of, not heart that necessarily rang true as Sonic, like the whole without family, you never have that feel from the games. But for what it was, it had a lot of heart, and I think it was a good movie, and I think it garnered a pretty good sized audience of non-Sonic fans, like parents who took their kids, okay, this is the next kids thing, oh, it's a movie based on a video game, and they went there and they go, oh wow, this has a lot of heart, this has a lot of care. Whereas Sonic fans were like, where's the game music? Why is it just Sonic? Where's the rest of the characters? They were wanting. Now Sonic 2 came out, and I would say with Sonic 2, it was a much more better Sonic movie, but not a better movie. The pacing with the human characters was way off in that movie, because now you've introduced Tails and Knuckles, and you're having all the excitement in there, but when it went to the wedding scene with the humans, it felt like for the Sonic fan, it killed the complete enjoyment of the film. It felt very off-paced. And so that was the big critique, was like, hey, that 20-minute wedding scene, if you cut that out, it would have been a perfect movie experience. But that's like the when you get up to go to the bathroom time in the movie theater. It just didn't need to be there. Now, having watched that movie multiple times, I mean, when the guy opens up and his Bible and he's got the taser gun in there, or when she gets off the golf cart with the drink and throws it, and all in a wedding dress, those are funny moments. It drew on too long. It was too much. The mix up with the ring, it was just drawn out too long. But there were funny moments, not moments that a Sonic fan was looking for, but there were funny moments. The Knuckles TV show, I enjoyed it for what it was. Yes, I would have liked something more focused on Knuckles. I would have liked to have actually seen Knuckles bowl, because I feel like if he's training, and I would have liked to see more of him training Wade, but I didn't have the vitriol reaction that a lot of people did. It was okay. Was it amazing? No. People built it up as it was going to be this huge thing, and I think a lot of expectations would have been better tamed if they had called it the Wade and Knuckles show, and you could put and Knuckles in there, because it was very much Wade's show and Knuckles went along with him, whereas the movies have always been Sonic's show and Tom is along for the ride. This was definitely Wade's show with Knuckles along for the ride. And that said, I didn't hate the humor in it. I liked all the stuff with Pistol Pete. My biggest problem with that show was making all the other characters as dumb as Wade to make Wade look smarter. Like, that's the thing, is Wade is kind of like the man-child that's, still living in his mom's house, blah, blah, blah. And the fact that they make his sister an FBI agent. Like he's a deputy sheriff in a small town, and he's like Barney Five. It makes sense. But having his sister be in the FBI and be just as incompetent, having the bad guys be a bounty hunter that's also equally incompetent, and then also the bad guys of ex-gun agents that have quit and they're also as goofy and incompetent as, say, bad guys from a Home Alone movie. It just kind of got like, this is getting a little ridiculous. You need somebody to be competent to match, but instead they brought everybody down to Wade's level, and that's when the Wade went too far. But so now we're up to Sonic 3. Okay, Sonic 3 is a movie that I think, once again, better Sonic movie, not a better movie all than movie 1, but a better movie than movie 2. Much better pacing in this. There were some use of the humans. My big complaint in this is Jim Carrey. And I love Jim Carrey. But I felt like this was Jim Carrey Batman Forever, the Riddler. And what I mean in that is in that movie, they lost control of Jim Carrey, and he could have been the most amazing Riddler, but he went too kooky, too Jim Carrey, that he lost the character. He made it unbelievable. He broke the seriousness of Batman. And then you had, what's his name, playing Two-Face, who could have done he is can do straight face stuff, comedy, like he did in Men in Black. But his Two-Face became goofy because he was trying to compete for those laughs with Jim Carrey, and he was never going to win that battle. And it just made that movie silly. Well, in this movie, Jim Carrey plays not only Robotnik, but he also plays Gerald Robotnik, another character, both in fat bodysuits. And maybe I'll mention a little bit more in the spoiler section, but yeah, they went a bit too far. I feel like he was done with acting. I think they parked the money truck up in front of him, but I also think he had requirements, because he stated, it's got to be the best script if I'm going to come back, and it's going to be this, and he wanted to wear this fat suit, so they let him wear the fat suit. I think having him play both characters is something interesting that got him to come back, and I think he's like, whoa, couldn't we do this, or can we ad-lib this? There's even a point in film where he's breaking the fourth wall. It's almost like we're, and this is not the spoiler part, but this is not something I feel like is a big spoiler. It's like, he says, oh, it's almost like we're characters in a movie. Ooh, and they look at the camera. Yeah, that kind of stuff is, in my opinion, it went too over the top. It made it too silly. You go, oh, but you liked in Sonic 2 when they did the Russian bar dancing. And I'm like, yeah, that was silly and it was funny, but for what it was, and it was involving Sonic and Tails doing a dance. This is Jim Carrey in fat suit dancing. Jim Carrey reacting with Jim Carrey in fat suits. It's just, I'm trying to be careful of spoilers, although I think some of this has been in the trailers, and I don't really consider this like a plot spoiler, but this is just, that kind of got me. And so if this is Jim Carrey's last one, I think that's good. I would fear them continuing to use Jim Carrey and allowing him to be even more Jim Carrey. Let him settle down, because if he's going to keep being out of control, the movies are just going to go further and further down that insanity. I feel like they're tasteful to how they adapt the Sonic Adventure 2 story. And we'll get a little bit more into that in the spoiler section. But for those people, like I said, kind of recapping this whole thing, some of my friends who aren't Sonic fans have gone in and they see it, and they say, I see the crowd, and they're cheering like it's an Avenger movie. And I don't get it. This is not that big. And I'm here to tell you, as a diehard Sonic fan, I agree with you. These movies are not masterpieces of cinema. And yet, they're some of my favorite movies. Because I'm a Sonic fan. Because I'm so big into Sonic. Seeing this on the big screen, being done all this, is that But no, these aren't the greatest stories ever told. But for this movie in particular, you have to understand where it came out. If you were a Sega kid in the 90s, Sonic was huge. He was everywhere. He was on your cereal box, on your SpaghettiOs, for crying out loud. I don't know where I put it. I actually have a mug of the SpaghettiOs Sonic, but he was everywhere. Everywhere. And then in the 2000s, as a lot of us that grew up in the 90s were hitting those teen years, he had his edgy transition as he went into the adventure era on the Dreamcast. And this is all of a sudden he was fighting giant kaiju monsters that were there to destroy the world. Melodramatic, big things. Shadow was all edgy and this and that. And then following Sonic Adventure 2 and all its edginess, you had games like Shadow the Hedgehog and Sonic 06, which got even more edgy, and we gave Shadow motorcycles and guns and all of this edgy stuff. And the games really up through maybe Unleashed, I think, were always super melodramatic, over the top, taking itself like it's Shakespeare, like it's some big Star Wars epic, when really it's a bunch of talking hedgehogs. It's silly, and the gaming industry, at the time the games were also very buggy, and so the gaming industry at large was poking fun at Sonic the Hedgehog. It's like, oh, was Sonic ever good? That was a famous IGN statement that they made. They were poking fun at all his bad friends. They were poking fun at how melodramatic and that for such buggy games, and they were just basically mocking Sega fans. And that Sonic Adventure 2 was really, when that came out, everybody praised it. Everybody praised it, and it was the swan song to the Dreamcast. They'd already announced Sega's leaving the console market. We've stopped production on the Dreamcast. But hey, here's this last game. This is the anniversary, 10-year anniversary of Sonic the Hedgehog. Last real official game coming out for the Dreamcast. Our swan song to being in the console race. It was this is the high note we're bowing out of the console race on, with Sonic Adventure 2. And so it was a real emotional thing for fans at the time. This was like, you'd been sitting there arguing why the Dreamcast was better than the PlayStation 2, why it's better than the N64, and it'll even be better than the GameCube and the Xbox that were coming out. Oh, your Dreamcast, and then they crushed you. It's all going away. But this is the last sliver of, this is Sega. Hold on to this. This is last. At the end of the game, it's very somber, and it looks like spoilers for the game, but it looks like Shadow has died. But they say he hasn't, and and it's playing somber music, and it's like goodbye not only to Shadow the Hedgehog, but to Sega as a first-party company. And this is a very somber moment. So this story hit so big for these kids of the 90s, and it was so much. And then Sonic changed. After a couple years after that of them going down this kind of edgy course, and basically games media just insulting Sonic fans, just tearing it to shreds, what happens? They changed the thing. Oh, let's make it more slapsticky. They tried Sonic Boom. Sonic Boom didn't take off as a franchise, but even in the main Sonic cast, it's like, ooh, let's have more fart jokes, more slapsticky, silly, goofy jokes. Sonic's friends, their background cast, it's just about Sonic. And then it became, it was kind of like we see in other things. Well, Sonic has always been for kids. You just have grown out of it. But people are wanting that edgy stuff that we had as teens. Now as adults, we wanted to stay there, and it felt like it was regressing backwards to even kiddier than Sonic ever was. And so a lot of fans didn't like that. Now it's on the big screen. And this year, the year of Shadow, which I will do another video about, we had animated show about Shadow leading up to Sonic X Shadow Generations. We've got the movie, and they're leaning into all the games that Sonic fans have been told to be embarrassed about. Everything that's been a trope about that is being glorified in this movie. And they're putting it front and center on a big screen and saying, yes, This is awesome. This is cool. Your childhood was not lame. It was not embarrassing. It was cool. And so when you're a Sonic fan who grew up on these things, you thought this stuff was cool, and you go and you see it done on the big screen with a big budget and big special effects, it's a cheer moment. It is a huge cheer moment. And if you haven't had that background, it's an above average CGI cartoon character with humans movie. It has a great story. It's a compelling story from the game, but it's just not going to hit for you. So if you're sitting there, you're watching it, you're going, I don't know why I don't get it. I don't get why all these people are so thrilled about this. It's because they're going in deep to the lore. They're going in and they're putting stuff in there that these fans hold cherished. They're doing the thing. And so now I feel like Sonic 4, even though this is looking, and we'll get into that in the spoiler part, but even though Sonic 4 looks like it'll be more what I want, I think that they will not be able to top this movie in sales wise. And before we get to the spoiler section, I wanna say one last thing. I've seen some rumors that Bob Iger is so enraged that people were posting that insider info that he's demanding that they buy Sega. I'm gonna come right out and say that is never gonna happen. Never gonna happen. First of all, Disney's had a lot of flops. Bob Iger didn't go out and buy King Kong or Godzilla because -1 did better than a Disney movie. He hasn't gone out and bought Jurassic Park because it did better than a Disney movie. The idea of buying Sega, here's the thing. Sega is not just a video game company. They're an adult entertainment company in the fact that they do casinos. And they own multiple casino facilities, and they make slot machines, and they make pachinko machines, and all that kind of stuff. They do online gambling. They do all this stuff in Japan. Even though they have shrunk from the number 2 in the gaming industry down to very small, where I don't even know if they're in the top 10 gaming companies. They're certainly not regarded that highly. Like, people are like, oh, a Sega game. Most kids today, most Gen Z and lower, like they don't even know that Sega used to be a console manufacturer. It's all Sony, Xbox, Nintendo. Like they don't. Sega's. You might as well say Atari to them, or ColecoVision or something like that, because they just don't know what Sega is, and they don't have an appreciation for all these wonderful IPs that Sega's sitting on. But Sega as a company is much bigger than their video game department. And they are valued at about $4 billion. And you go, oh, well, maybe they'll just show off That's possible. But it's very interwoven. Like, here it's kind of taboo, but there, they've got Sonic slot machines, they've got all those different properties. Yakuza, all these, Shenmue, whatever it is, Super Monkey Ball. They integrate that into the gambling, their mobile apps. All these different animals that they make money. So it's not easy to separate those two. Nor does the company that owns them want to. Like, they bought Sega and merged together for a reason. Now, obviously, Disney is the kind of company that could shell out $4 billion, but guess what? Sony offered to sell them Spider-Man for $4 billion, and they said no. Sonic is not worth what Spider-Man is worth. Spider-Man is a property that brings $1 billion in per movie. Sonic makes money. It's outperforming a Disney movie right now, a big Disney movie IP, but it's not had a movie yet that's brought in $1 billion. Maybe this one will, but unlikely. I think, maybe 500, 700 million is a possibility, which would make it as big as the past 2 movies combined, but I don't see it crossing the $1 billion mark. So why would Disney buy it for that amount? And Sega's not for sale. So it's, just because it's valued at $4 billion doesn't mean you just show up and hand them $4 billion and you go, oh, okay, well, I guess buy us. No, that's not how it works. They'd have to offer them more than they're worth to, and have a bunch of incentives to, CEOs and stuff and board of directors to even make them consider such a decision. I just don't see that happening. Especially since Sega is on its rise, its upswing right now. Yeah, that's just not going to happen. And Disney has no interest in being in the video game. So put those rumors to rest. That is not something that Disney right now, they're looking to probably have to sell something off. And that'd be an interesting thing to contemplate, because, it's like ESPN, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, or Lucasfilm. Of those, what do you sell? Because it's like Disney is at a point where they're going to have to start shaving costs to save face. But yeah, there's no way that they're going to pick up Sega of all things. So just stop. Like, I see Sonic fans getting riled. Those are just headlines made to rile people up. So ignore them. Okay, with that, let's get into spoilers.